Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Outlook in the DeFi Dojo. Today is February 2nd, and we are starting off the month with some crazy volatility, some extreme downside selling pressure, and I believe that we may be, and I'm not going to call a top yet, but I think we may have a top. Maybe. And I'm going to go through several reasons why I think this might be happening now. If it's not now, I think we have one leg left up. And so, as I was saying a couple months ago, the returns this year are going to be very difficult to obtain. If you are able to catch something and make 10-20% on a spot trade or some sort of hold, I think that's great, and you should take it from this point forward. However, if you are in something that is drastically losing consistently, it is very, very likely that it might not return back to you. And I'll start with this chart here that I shared several months ago. And for a long time now, even since I bought Bitcoin and equities in October of 2022, where we nailed the bottom, I pointed out that the housing cycle is likely going to be causing chaos at the latest 2026, because that would mark the 18-year mark from 2008. However, it might be starting early, and we might chop sideways for the majority of this year on equities. Now, with crypto, I've been saying for a really, really long time now, since we bought it at 16K, that I think the top would be in this box here, and I've had this drawn since I bought here, where we bought the bottom, right? And if I zoom into this, you'll see we've just been hitting our head against the bottom of the take profit zone, and we've yet to really be able to get into it. Now, it is still possible that we'll get into it for Bitcoin. Right? I'm not saying anything about altcoins. I'm saying Bitcoin specifically. It is still holding the weekly 8 EMA. If we look at the regular chart for Bitcoin on the weekly, just zoom in here, and this box again has been my take profit zone. We've been hitting the first TP zone at the 1.272, which is 103.6, for a really long time now, and it's yet to be able to get another candle close over. And we're still holding that 8 EMA though. Like, the weekly candle closed, and it closed just above it. However, there is divergence here. So not only is there divergence from this point to this point on the weekly chart, where you can clearly see that the RSI was higher here than it was here, right? So that momentum is going down, even though the price is going up. That's what we call bearish divergence. We also have it showing just in this little time frame as well. This made a higher high, this was lower, yet this was higher, and now this was lower, and it actually rejected the average on the RSI here when it made that higher high. So this little section here is also divergent. So it would not surprise me that we are rejecting this 1.272 at the very least right now, and that we are going to head lower. To 88 would be my first guess, right? That would be the first place I would think Bitcoin would go. And if it does happen to fall lower than that, then we're likely going to go fill this gap on the CME chart. So I am not I sold everything that I have, altcoins. I'm only holding a little bit of Ethereum. I already sold all my equities that I planned on selling, and I had been saying since, last year sometime, that I was planning on selling out of everything by mid this year, by June, and it's just happening sooner than I expected, and that's fine. Heavily in profits from October of 2022, and I have no complaints. I did think that I would get more out of crypto, specifically altcoins, but they're not showing me what I want to see. So if we look at total 3, which is our altcoin market, and divide it by Bitcoin, we want this chart to be going up if we want altcoins to do well. We had this bullish cross happen several months ago, and that's when I started buying some alts, and I made some gains on some, and I lost on others. Pretty much, I would say I broke even during this little stretch here. which is fine. I'm not like dying, but I'm certainly not going to hold in hope after we reject a 382, which is the sign of a strong downtrend, and then fail to hold the 236. So last week I said if we lose that mark, I'm just going to sell, and so that's what we did, and so that's what I did. And until we start showing that we're going to maybe make a lower high. Ugh, I can't speak. A lower low here. A higher low. So here's your low, and I'm hoping for a higher low here, and then come shooting back up. I'm not really interested in altcoins. With this 382 rejection, it is now very technically possible that we go down and see a lower low, because that's the MO of the fibs. That's what they do. So altcoins. We got the MACD crossing red here. We're falling below center on the RSI, and while we may get like a bounce back up here this week, maybe, it still doesn't look like something I want to invest in for the longer term. If anything, maybe take some scalps if we start showing support. But that's basically it. Looking at total crypto market cap, this is what kind of perplexes me. So it's kind of rare to get through, the greed FOMO zone, which is this blue area, and not go at least see the 1.272. But this chart is also divergent, where you have a high and then a higher high in the price, and then you have a high and a lower high on the RSI. Now, the MACD is not showing that. It's basically kind of level, which is still technically bearishly divergent because it didn't make a super higher high with it. So it is still showing that the momentum here got weaker, even though the price got higher. And if you look back here, that's exactly what marked the top in the last cycle. Here you have higher high, and then on the MACD and the RSI, this definitely was trending down during that span of time, and that's what marked the top and helped me get out the last time. So I don't want to play around with bearish divergence on weekly timeframes, especially with crypto. It's just not worth it. If it proves me wrong, fine, I'll hop back in and take this up for a ride to the next TP target, but that's how I'm planning on playing it. I'm not holding and hoping and waiting for some sort of flash crash event to live through. And I won't be buying it either. Like if we flash crash down, I'm not planning on buying. The only time I'm planning on buying is if it proves to me that this divergence is wrong and goes up and breaks that resistance at this white line here, which means I'd be buying back at all-time highs. But I would much rather buy on a confirmed breakout, right? Rather than sit through another 6 months of this, buying every time it hits this line and then losing again. Like I'm not going to deal with that stress. It's just not worth it. So until we break and close above this downtrend that we have going on, I'm not buying. And if we do close above it, great. I'll try to take it up to the next spot and I'll take my profits and I'll get out again until it can prove to me that it's going to close over this one. And then I'll take it for a ride to the next level. And playing it level to level is just how I'm going to do it going forward. Crypto's too volatile and you can lose way too much money, especially if you're using high amounts of capital in a very short period of time, and all of a sudden you just feel like crap. So I'm not doing that. If we look at Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ, it's also divergent, right? Bearish divergence, even on the MACD here. So right now this is showing me I'm better off being in the NASDAQ than I am in crypto or in Bitcoin right now. We opened up below the 8 EMA. And you can also see that this little section right here is also bearishly divergent because that's higher than this, and this price went higher than this. So there's just bearish divergence all over the place, opening up underneath the 8 EMA. It would not surprise me to see this come down. Now, saying that it's better to be in the NASDAQ than Bitcoin, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go buy the NASDAQ right now. Like if we look at this chart, we're rejecting the 1.618, and this has been bearishly divergent since July. Right? And now the NASDAQ is known to be bearishly divergent for a really long time. Like you can see that this whole situation here was bearishly divergent the entire time. It just means that eventually it's going to collapse, right? And so that's what I think could potentially be happening now for equities. And I said before we even had an election that it wasn't going to matter who got elected. So before you start blaming Trump or whatever the powers that may be, I knew that this market was coming down before we even had a president elected. It didn't matter. This is just the nature of human beings. We buy things low And when we get enough returns, we sell things and start taking profits. And then the cycle repeats. It's nothing new, especially when you look at the last 18 or the last almost 100 years. And every 18 years, we get some sort of downtrend, right? It doesn't. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's large. But either way, we always end up falling back to this white line, right? Over the last, what's this? This is 1942, okay? So we're at 80 plus years here of 18-year housing market cycles, and I'd say half of them bring us back down to that white line. So I'm in capital preservation mode, right? Like I have a feeling that I know what's coming based on the charts and what I'm looking at, and I would rather not risk my capital trying to gamble on crypto recovering and maybe getting another move for Bitcoin back to 130, 120, 130K, which is the max that I really see it. 170 could be on the table if it really does well, but for the time being, I would much rather save my cash and wait for this fall. And if I see that white line again on equities, I'm all in. Like I am just all in. And I would feel much safer putting all of my capital on that white line than I would trying to risk it on crypto and Bitcoin right now. So I hope that makes sense. And maybe you're not in the same position as me. Maybe you're willing to risk it. But for me, my money is way too precious to be risking it on crypto right now, especially after the gains that we've seen over the last 2.5 years. Like great gains, right? Like I'm happy tucking that money away and waiting for the opportunity to come. And this right here is what's going to help me determine that mostly. For a long time, this DXY chart wasn't very helpful to us. But when we start seeing it become macro bullish again, and we now have the potential to get up into this golden pocket, this is going to wreak havoc on all major markets. Like it doesn't matter what it is. And while we are over this 0.5, I am not even considering buying anything whatsoever. I'm happy in cash. This is showing me that my cash is strong. My dollar is strong. And so why would I take my strong dollar and put it into weak markets? It doesn't make sense, right? So while we're over that 0.5, I'm sitting happy in cash and I'm cozy. And like, just so you know, like we're still at like all-time highs. Like look at how high this chart is. So it's not like we don't have an opportunity to take profits. Like we absolutely do. Bitcoin's still way the hell up here, right? Like if you got out now and this ends up being the top, you can say you sold the top because you are. Did we miss it by 10% maybe? Yeah, sure, but nobody's going to nail the top perfectly. This is as close as it gets if this is a top. Now maybe we make a flash crash down, fill that gap on the CME, and then maybe after that we can bounce up and hit the next fib. But this is the max that I see. Well, excuse me. This is the max I see Bitcoin going. If it does, is 125 to 130. So that's maybe 30% from here, which in the land of crypto, it's not amazing. And then altcoins aren't showing me that it's going to even try to follow. So until they do, Bitcoin's kind of all we have, right? I'm holding ETH because I'm an ETH maxi and I can't just let it all go. I'm too committed, but I don't have that much left anyway, so it's not a big deal. And if we see this 2,500 mark, I might buy some back, and then if it breaks it, then fine, I'm just out for good. But right now we need to hold 2770, and maybe we can keep a hold of this inverted head and shoulders look that potentially might be happening. But when we're looking at the weekly and those EMAs are about to cross bearish right here, I don't really like my chances. So maybe this week it pulls it together and blasts right back up through here and closes over those EMAs and curls them upward instead of crossing bearish. This is the week that it has to do it, so we'll see. If it does, then I'll hop back into ETH and I'll probably just hold that alone. If it doesn't, I'll try to buy some back around 2,500. For the time being, I am doing nothing other than sitting happy in my cash. Okay. I'm probably going to have a couple penny plays this week, which maybe that'll be fun. We'll see. And maybe I ramp that up a little bit more since the market's kind of boring and there's not much else going on. Total market cap, we already covered that. Okay, I think I covered everything. ETH CME's now got a huge gap here to start the week. So let's see if we go to the daily. It's pretty hefty. Where is our pivots? So Could try to do a little weekly trade here if you want. Maybe try long on ETH, and if it breaks down below 28, 23 again, then just cut it. So small risk, potential big reward to fill the gap. I'd probably take my profits happily at 30.86 if I was able to do that. So just a trade idea there. It's not really great trying to long this right now because daily's bearish, weekly potentially turning bearish. But we might get a dead cat bounce you can take advantage of, potentially, because it can't just go straight down forever most of the time. It's crypto. It could flash crash. So be careful. All right. I think that covers it all. You can go ahead and drop some chart requests if you want. Just do me a favor. Look at the weekly. And if the EMAs are bearish, just assume I'm going to tell you that it's not good. Okay? If you find something in crypto with bullish weekly EMAs, feel free to drop it and I'll go over it. For the time being, I'm not going into short mode yet because I don't think it's time. And I don't think it's time to buy the dip either. We're kind of in that in-between boring stage where I thought we would be. And this whole year might be pretty boring if we just continue to chop sideways on the macro levels. What would you do if you were all in ETH? Well, I mean, I would definitely not be in it. I wouldn't be. I don't know how to answer that. I wouldn't be. I did have quite a bit, and I'm now out of it. But I have some, and I'm not selling it yet unless we break 2,500. And then I would potentially buy some more back if we do hit that 2,500 mark, because it would be, right around this area here on the trend line. And then if that breaks, well, then we broke our entire bull market trend, and then I'm out. So, given your conviction in the bearish view, are you considering shorting anything? So yeah, not yet. I don't think we're there yet. Typically you have a bull market, and then you have a long sideways market, and then you get the bear market, right? So everybody hates the sideways market, and in reality, this has been going sideways since February of 24. Just really not making any higher highs. It's just been getting stuck at the same $4,000 level and rejecting every time. So if we happen to bounce and we break it, fine, I'll buy it back and I'll try to take it up to the 7,000 mark. If we don't, then I'll try at 2,500. And if 2,500 breaks, then I'm out completely. I'm just selling everything that I have left. And yeah, that's the game plan for me. And until that breaks, I'm not considering shorting anything, because this can go sideways for a long time, right? Same thing with ES. Like, this could fall back down to its channel, bounce back up again until it breaks that channel. I'm not shorting. With the NASDAQ, kind of the similar situation. Until this channel breaks that we've been in for years, I don't want to short anything, right? I don't want to long anything either because of all the divergence. So we're just in that in-between phase. And if you try to really trade this market, any of them, for any sort of swing trading, it's going to be really difficult. You're likely going to get chopped up. So until we get into a better market where we can be more certain of direction, it's do nothing time. So I hope that helps. Any more questions? Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I got to do it the way I'm doing it. Are bots a safe spot for now? Yeah, I think the bots are catching these shorts really well. The problem is the freaking exchanges are having issues with liquidity because the markets are so volatile. I know Astrobit's looking into some things to try to fix those issues. And I'm sending out alerts whenever I see that there are, and saying, hey, like, go check your positions, because you can always go and look at the chart yourself and see if it has a close or an open trade, and then check your exchange and see if it caught that trade, right? And then if you need to, make a manual push if something was missed. For right now, it seems like the majority of the issues are on the Woofy exchange, Apex, and I've heard one issue with Hyperliquid, which is the first time I've heard an issue on it. So I'm not sure if maybe that was user related or if it was, the exchange related, until I look further into that. But yeah, I mean, the bots all won shorts this weekend, and quite substantial ones too. So it seems like they are seeing things that I'm seeing, which is great. and taking advantage of the short-term movements. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right, I will post the recording of this video in the Weekly Outlook channel. Stay safe out there, guys. Don't try to do too much. And I hope you've been able to make some money with me over the last 2.5 years, because it's about to get real, I think. All right, have a good one. Bye.